follow up on what you said in your introduction about the risk of false flag event and Russia maybe using chemical weapons. How would NATO respond in such a scenario? Is this a red line for potential NATO intervention? Thank you.
Any use of chemical weapons will be a violation of international law, will be a violation of the ban that, or the treaty that bans chemical weapons, and Russia has signed to that convention. We call on Russia not to use chemical weapons. We call on Russia to withdraw all its forces and to stop the fighting, but in particular not to use any chemical weapons. Russia has used chemical agents before to attack and actually kill political opponents. We have also seen that Russia has supported the Assad regime in Syria and helped to facilitate the use of chemical weapons several times in Syria. And any use of chemical weapons is absolutely unacceptable, and therefore it is also extremely important that Russia understands that it is unacceptable if they consider any use of chemical weapons, and we are also very vigilant about the possibility of them trying to stage some kind of pretext false flag operation to provide an excuse for any type of use of chemical weapons.
Okay, we'll go to NPR, Deutsche Welle, lady in pink.
Thank you very much. Just somewhat of a follow-up on Natalia's question. She was asking whether what NATO would do and whether this changes your red lines. So as you say that you are looking at NATO's military posture again, is this something that you would consider changing? You have said that this would be a war crime, and we know that simply warning Russia against doing something is not enough of a deterrent to stop it. So if NATO knows, or if NATO sees that a chemical attack could take place and you say that's a war crime, would NATO consider changing the fact that it would not intervene in case of such a threat? Thank you.
Our main responsibility is to protect and defend all NATO allies. It is important that Russia understands that we are there to do exactly that. We have conveyed a very clear message to Russia about that we also see when they try to stage pretexts for the use of chemical weapons. We have seen that they, throughout this crisis, have tried to create different kinds of false flag operations to try to provide excuses for the use of force. We saw that in the lead-up to the intervention, and now we have seen them accusing Ukraine and also NATO allies developing chemical weapons. And that's an absolute lie, and therefore it also makes us a bit concerned about the possibility that they are actually planning to do that. The President of the United States and other allies also made it very clear that if they use chemical weapons, there will be a high price to pay. But I will not speculate about any military response from the NATO side, except for saying very clearly that NATO's main responsibility is to make sure that we defend and protect all allies.
DPA, just behind, yeah, gentleman. No, no, okay. Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung.
Thomas Kutschka, Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung. Secretary General, after the demise of the INF Treaty, it's been NATO's position that the Russian deployment of SSC-8 will not be reciprocated by the deployment of medium or intermediate nuclear-capable missile systems. In the light of the Russian aggression against Ukraine and President Putin's threats, nuclear threats to NATO, in your view, does this stance need to be reviewed?
The demise of the INF Treaty was a serious setback for international arms control, because the INF Treaty, agreed in 1987, banned all intermediate range weapon systems. Then over the last years, over actually several years, we have seen that Russia has deployed a new missile which violates this treaty, and then that led to the demise of the treaty a few years ago. We have stated from the NATO, and Russia has deployed these weapons over now several years, the SSC-8. We have made it clear that we will not mirror what Russia does. So we have no plans to deploy nuclear-capable intermediate-range land-based systems in Europe. At the same time, we need to be able to make sure that we are able to respond and protect all allies, also in a new security environment where Russia has deployed more nuclear-capable missiles. And therefore, we have to do many things at the same time. We need to strengthen our air and missile defense. We are doing that. We need to invest more in advanced conventional capabilities, including fifth-generation aircraft. And I welcome the German decision to invest in fifth-generation aircraft. We need also to increase the readiness and our ability to monitor, detect. And of course, we also need to make sure that NATO's nuclear deterrent remain safe and secure and effective. And that's exactly what we're doing when we are now making sure that we exercise and ensure the effectiveness of our nuclear deterrent.
Associated Press. Mr. Secretary General, what do you know about the 3 European leaders visiting Ukraine today?
NATO allies and the European leaders have had extensive contacts with Ukraine and the political leadership in Ukraine, including with President Zelensky throughout the whole crisis and also to lead up to the crisis. I think it's important that leaders of NATO countries, of European member states, are engaging closely with President Zelensky. We will have the defense minister of Ukraine attending the NATO Defence Ministerial tomorrow by video link, and therefore I think it's important that we, at all levels, in different formats, engage and meet with the Ukrainian political leadership.
Interfax.
Dank u wel. Thank you, Interfax Ukraine, Irina Sommer. This morning, some mass media spread information about possible extraordinary summit, NATO summit, next week. Can you please confirm this? And second technical question. According to my information, it took for NATO bureaucracy 1.5 weeks to implement Ukrainian request for fuel. Can you please comment on this too? Thank you.
Well, NATO allies are providing and have provided a lot of different types of support to Ukraine. Some of this is channeled through the NATO framework. Some are provided bilaterally. And for us, it is important that we provide support on short notice and that we provide critical support which Ukraine needs. Overall, I think the message is that over many years, leading up to invasion, but also after invasion, allies have been very quick in stepping up and providing support. And again, I'm a bit reluctant to go into all the details about exactly how and where and when, but the overall picture is that allies are providing significant support, and they've done some on short notice, and that's different types of weapons, but also that includes fuel. Well, NATO allies have consulted and coordinated closely over several weeks, both in the lead up to the invasion, but also after the invasion. We had a virtual summit just one day after, and we have had different ministerial meetings, also extraordinary ministerial meetings, and we will have an extraordinary defense ministerial meeting tomorrow. then we are able to convene also a NATO summit with all the NATO leaders on short notice, but I cannot go into more details about that now.
Okay, we'll take a couple of questions online. We'll go to Jutarney list, Augustin Pajokai.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Secretary General, I have a question which many people in Croatia are asking. How is it possible that a drone of 6 tons heavy enters NATO airspace and flies for around an hour and crashed in the capital of a NATO member state, while you are so vigilant in defending NATO sky? And do you know something more, whether it really was a drone without a weapon or something? Because the Prime Minister and Minister of Defense said that there was an explosive device in this flying object that crashed in Zagreb. Thank you.
Well, I spoke with Prime Minister Plenković on Sunday, and we are working together to establish all the facts, but the preliminary indications and information we have is that this was an unarmed drone, and that the drone was off course, and that it ran out of fuel and crashed outside Zagreb, or crashed in Croatia. But we will have more confirmed facts soon, but that's the information we have so far. I think also it is important to realize that allies are exchanging information, and that this drone was tracked by the NATO's integrated air and missile defense tracked the flight of the drone that later crashed in Zagreb. But again, we will make sure that the different allies that were involved share all the information, and then we can establish all the facts about what this happened. I think, if anything, it demonstrates the need to further strengthen integration, further strengthen information sharing among allies, and also to invest more and upgrade everything from radars to our presence of air and missile defense systems, and that's exactly what we do also by deploying more Patriots in the eastern part of the alliance.
Okay, we'll go to Robert Lupitu, Calea Europeană.
Thank you very much for taking my question. Mr. Secretary General, I want to ask you whether there will be a speed-up process for this establishment of the NATO battle group in Romania. And also, since you mentioned about a reset in NATO's defense posture after Russia's invasion into Ukraine, do you think that this reset will also mean an unitary approach, both for the northern part of the eastern flank and both for the southern part of the eastern flank? We will see the same level of troops and defense commitment in the Baltics, in Poland, and also in Romania and Bulgaria? Thank you very much.
So we have already increased significantly our presence in the eastern part of the alliance, also in the Black Sea region, with more troops. I went to Romania a couple of weeks ago, and I met with US forces, German forces, and other forces there who have actually increased their presence. And now the lead elements of the NATO Response force have been deployed to Romania, French troops, and this demonstrates that there is already a significant increased military presence in the eastern part of the alliance. We speak about 40,000 forces on high readiness and the direct NATO command. Then we have the national forces. We have also bilateral arrangements. So in total, this is a quite significant presence both in Romania and the southeast of the alliance, but also in the Baltic region. This is our immediate response. And as I said, the battle groups is under establishment with the French-led VJTF element. Then what we will discuss at the Defense Ministerial meeting is not only the immediate response and the need for support to Ukraine, but we will also look at the need to reset our presence, our deterrence and defense posture in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the integration of Russian and Belarusian forces. That will take some more time because I think we need to assess the different options. We need advice from our military commanders, and I expect that the ministers, when they meet tomorrow, will agree will agree to ask our military commanders to provide advice for the more longer-term adaptation. So I think it's important to distinguish clearly about the immediate response, already tens of thousands of more troops, air power and naval power, and then the more long-term adjustment of our posture. There will take some more time before we take final decisions. I expect that to be made at the NATO summit at the end of June.
Thank you very much. This concludes this press conference. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Special Forces, and in doing so, the Special Forces is always adapting and changing, just to climate more in general. And I think most importantly, being here, it's a climate we don't often work in, and it's super important for us to get knowledge, mainly with the simple stuff. How does your body, work in this environment? And it's super important to us, so we can prepare for any kind of conflict. So we can be successful in it. Operating in the cold, first and foremost, it's difficult and nobody wants to do it. It's definitely a select few that has to be identified, that's willing to get out there, get exposed with it, and take that challenge, because it's difficult. For instance, just changing your socks is a task, and it's a hard task to do. It's been awesome. These guys are the professionals in this environment. And generally speaking, if we're trying to learn something for the first time, we want to learn it from the professionals. And everything, the tricks, the tips, that has helped us immensely. Once again, just like I said, to be able to do the simple task and make them easy. NATO forces, honestly, because it's a joint effort, and I firmly believe that, because we can't operate in anything alone. We're always depending on each other. And NATO specifically can benefit from this by learning just the essentials, how to survive and be successful in this environment. Because I keep going back to this, it's extremely difficult to do the simple task. And when you look at it from a bigger picture, if we can accomplish a simple task, then the actual task of whatever we're being tasked to do with, to operate in this environment, that's where the success